Good morning, everyone, and welcome into the Penn State Alumni Association's Coffee Hour. We will be getting started in just a minute, but before we do, we hope you'll share who you are and where you're zooming in from today. You can share that information in the chat in Zoom, or if you're watching on Facebook Live, you could put that right in the comments on Facebook Live. We'd love to welcome you into the Penn State Alumni Association's Coffee Hour. We are talking with the 82nd president of the Penn State Alumni Association today. Kelley Lynch from Pittsburgh will be joining us, and we look forward to hearing about her vision for her role as president of the Alumni Association. We're also looking to hear a little bit about her background and the career that she has built over the years. It's a fascinating niche of accounting and her several CFO positions that we're going to dive into a little bit. I see our friend David Dapko joining from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Hopefully the rain has surpassed down there, David, and that the sun has returned to South Florida. Good to see you. Carrie Hanlon joining us. Carrie is a sorority sister. Actually, I think Kelley Lynch was her big in her sorority. So Carrie Hanlon joining us. Welcome, Carrie. I see John Hess from Westchester. He remembers Kelley from her freshman year. So maybe we'll get into a story or two from the first floor of Pollock and in Geary Hall. I see Judy Hall here, our colleague in annual giving, and Marianne, who is in Wilmington, Delaware this morning. Kelly Frager joining us from Maryland. Welcome in, Kelly. Kelly Frager and Kelley Lynch knew each other through Lion Ambassadors. So some wonderful connections already here this morning on Coffee Hour. We'll be getting started in just a moment. Thanks for joining us. Where else would you rather be than a Zoom full of Penn Staters? I'm Paul Clifford, CEO of the Penn State Alumni Association, and welcome to the Alumni Association's Coffee Hour. Each week right here on Coffee Hour, you can expect to hear the voices of Penn Staters talking about what they're passionate about, and you can expect to feel the pride and the power of the Penn State network. As always, we're recording these sessions and closed captions are available for this event. You can find that information in the chat in Zoom or in the comments on Facebook. Well, today we're talking with the 82nd president of the Penn State Alumni Association, Kelley Lynch. Kelley is the CFO and VP of operations for Othot. With more than 25 years of experience in financial management and operations, she has made significant contributions to the expansion, development, and fiscal security of businesses in the technology, pharmaceutical services, manufacturing, and engineering industries. Prior to Othot, Kelley worked in executive positions in several innovative, fast-growing companies overseeing finance, accounting, human resources, customer service, and a variety of corporate projects. Her strong and effective communication and collaboration skills have helped her shape and position many organizations for success. Kelley earned an MBA from Carnegie Mellon University's Tepper School of Business and her undergraduate degree in finance from Penn State, where she currently serves, as I've said a number of times, as the president of the Alumni Association. Please join me in welcoming Kelley Lynch to Coffee Hour. Kelley, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing, Paul?
I am fantastic. It is good to see you. Kelley, let's start off. Are you a coffee or a tea drinker?
I'm tea, black tea.
Tea. Okay.
With milk, but yes.
Excellent, excellent. So Kelley, take us back to the beginning. How did you become a Penn State Nittany Lion?
So I have a story that I think many people have, but also not everyone has. You know, we have generations of Penn Staters. I did not have that story. My mom grew up in Ann Arbor, and when I say grew up in Ann Arbor, at the end of the street was U of N. So like, for example, my mom and aunt used to park cars for football games, make money. And that's, my grandfather allowed them to do that, and they could keep the money. My dad grew up in Cleveland. They both went to university. One went to Detroit Mercy, one went to University of Detroit. So no Big Ten, no big football. So growing up in Pittsburgh, well, we were obviously huge Steeler fans, but on Saturdays we were usually busy with our various activities. So we didn't watch a lot of college football, but my dad would take all of us to a Pitt game, usually every year. And it was fun. I mean, I know but it was fun. It was fun in the old Pitt Stadium. But when it came time to apply to colleges, I described what I wanted, but Penn State wasn't on my list because I was like, oh, I want to go away. I want to go far away. My sister was a swimmer, and she did a lot of swim meets up at State College, up at Penn State. So my mom and dad kind of, I want to say bribed me, but they took me out of school on a Thursday in the middle of October. It was like 65, 70 degrees, not a cloud in the sky. We got lost in Altoona, so we were late for the tour. So we got a private line ambassador tour of Penn State. I fell in love, filled out the application that weekend, and I was done. And so that was in October. In November, Penn State used to always play after, Thanksgiving weekend. Right. So on Wednesdays in high school, it was Penn State Day. And I didn't have any Penn State gear, unlike now. But back then I didn't. And so I had to borrow a Penn State sweatshirt from my sister, and I wore that day to school. And I remember my one brother was like, how can you do that? We live in Pittsburgh. We've gone to Pitt games. He goes, you haven't even been accepted yet. I'm like, yes, well, I'm Penn State, and Penn State through and through, and never turned back.
That's great. That's great. You're probably the first person ever to admit having fun at a Pitt football game. So, and we have that recorded. So hopefully
we do. Back in the day, they had a really fun announcer. I remember, Jerry Boyarsky and Hugh Green. I assume Pitt people might know who those people are, but so.
Absolutely. You mentioned a couple things that I think became part of your Penn State experience. Then you took an ambassador tour when you came up to visit Penn State. I know you have a couple sorority sisters on the call today. Talk about some of the things you were involved in when you were a student here at Penn State.
So the first thing I got involved with actually was university choir. So I applied I think I tried out within the first couple of weeks. Being up at Penn State. And, I came from a big high school. A bigger high school. My graduating class, I think, had like 650. So I was used to kind of bigger, but I wanted to get involved from the beginning. So I did get, involved with the university choir. I actually tried out I was a lifeguard for like 2 weeks, but then I had to take the extra test, and well, I didn't pass. So, but I remember one of my biggest things that I did not get involved with, which I was really upset, and I will own this, is I tried out to be a Penn State cheerleader, and I did not make it. And I was devastated. I will own I was devastated, because I just assumed that's what my path would be. But then what it did, obviously, it allowed me and kind of opened my eyes to other opportunities. So with that, I then hit the road. I joined a sorority. I was at AOPI. I was a treasurer. I was involved with some of the Greek. I think my senior year, I was overall Greek Week chair for the whole campus. So that was a big part of my life. Still was in the choir. And then I was very fortunate to become a Lion ambassador, as you had mentioned. And then I was in Mortar Board, the National Honor Society. I was the president of that. And I was inducted into Parmi Nu. So those were kind of the big things I was involved with. But I was also involved with our class gift. In our class gift, I graduated in '87, just so if everyone knows, our theme was leaving an entrance. So if you were at the corner of College and Shortridge, so right across from McClanahan's, how it's all like, it's nice, that was our class gift. Before it was just kind of just dirt and pebbles and whatever. So that was our class gift. So it was fun. We had I got to know so many people. And I think the thing, and I know this is something that most Penn Staters will feel, your first semester, especially up at University Park, it's so big. But as each semester went along and you met people, it just got smaller and smaller and smaller. And I think after my first semester, you couldn't go anywhere without at least recognizing someone or maybe knowing someone, passing them, on the way to class every other day, because it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday. So I tried to get involved in everything I could.
So you mentioned a lot of organizations that you were involved in. What are some of your favorite memories from your time here at Penn State?
Oh man, there are so many. I mean, yeah, when you talk about like speaking of like line ambassadors, I mean, I love giving tours. I loved giving tours. I had so much fun. And one of my, one of my big memories of giving a tour, just thought about it, was I lived in East Halls my first 2 years. I lived in Bigler Hall, and I loved East Halls. We had a great time there. And so I don't know if it's still the case, but we had a tour dorm room at the back of, I think it was either McLean or somewhere up in East Hall. And so we would end the tour there usually. And then some people would head over to like Shields Building, and some people would walk back to, to Old Main. But we ended there because a lot of people wanted to go over, talk to the register. They had some things to do up in Shields. And I talked so much apparently about how much I loved East Halls that I had this one parent and son that said, "Oh, we're going to head over now because we want to change." And I'm like, "What are you changing?" Said, "Oh, well, I got assigned West Halls. I want to move it to East Halls." I was like, "Oh, okay." And I just remember the person next to me goes, "He's going to hunt you down." I'm like, "I loved East Halls." He goes, "But West Halls is pretty awesome." I'm like, "Well, I'll be graduated by the time he figures it out." So. And then like with the sororities, I loved homecoming and dance marathon. I danced marathon twice, my junior and senior year and we were still in white building at that time. And then, well, my senior year was national championship. So we won that. And then as a line ambassador, we got to do the tour or the parade in early January. And that was a blast, all in Old Main, and got to see the AP trophy. And I have a picture that I took. I guess I could have grabbed it. We were in Old Main, and Joe Paterno and Bryce Jordan were standing side by side. They were holding the AP trophy, and there were two other guys, and they had like pins on. I saw this photographer going over to take a picture. I ran behind him, and I got a picture. And the bottom corner is white, and that was his jacket. But I have this clear picture of Joe Paterno, Bryce Jordan, the AP guy, holding the national championship trophy. So that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. And you didn't make the cheerleading squad when you were here at Penn State, but as the 82nd president of the Alumni Association, you are now the university's biggest cheerleader.
There we go. I like that.
I'm Paul Clifford. I'm the CEO of the Alumni Association. We are joined by Kelley Lynch. She's the president of the Alumni Association. Kelley, let's dive into your career a little bit. You graduate from Penn State. Take us through the early part of your career.
Sure. So I started, I had two kind of industry options when I was graduating. One was manufacturing, one was banking. I was a finance major, and you couldn't get too more different if you're in the finance world. And so I sat down and I realized I want manufacturing. I like making things. I like having a product. And so I chose, and I worked at PPG Industries. So my first 4 years out of school, I lived in Meadville, Pennsylvania. I lived in New York, and I lived in Kansas City. PPG, if anyone knows PPG, we used to have three kind of main industries. They were trying to add a fourth industry in medical equipment. And so I got assigned to that. That's how I ended up in New York and then Kansas City. But it was very fortuitous that I got into that, because then when I was applying for grad school, so I got accepted to Carnegie Mellon. I was going to go full time. My finance major kicked in. I'd been saving a lot of money, because I was preparing to go to grad school. But I realized the amount of money I saved would pay for about not quite 1 year of just tuition. So I started looking for opportunities in Pittsburgh, and there was this company called Respironics that was just coming to fruition. They had gone public, which was ironic. They were 36 million in revenue when they went public. I mean, that just doesn't happen now. But they were located, it was actually started in Monroeville, where I grew up. And my dad had taken a tour of their new facilities. He calls me up and said, they need cost accounting and stuff. Isn't that what you do? I'm like, it is. So I applied there, and just everything worked out. And I was so blessed because they actually then even offered to pay for my grad school. So I ended up working at Respironics while I was going to grad school. It was 3 really hard years, but it was great because admittedly I came out with no debt. But at the same time, I would be in class and then get to apply what I learned. So when I started at Respironics, we had 100 employees. And like I said, we were just over 36 million in revenue. When I graduated from Carnegie Mellon, I was fortunate. I had opportunities across the country, but I really liked Respironics. I liked making that impact because we were small enough and we were growing. And we did a bunch of acquisitions. I helped get to integrate acquisitions. I moved out of finance and accounting into customer satisfaction. I even did a stint in human resources. So I got to move around the company. And it just really gave me a love. That kind of started my love of kind of smaller, fast-growing companies, because I really am a generalist. I love business. I love all the integration of all of the elements. I love just working together. We did a bunch of acquisitions, and then it got to a point we were actually going to be doing a rollout. We were going to be doing a spin-out company. Things didn't work for numerous reasons. And so I decided to start looking for another opportunity. And that's when I ended up at a company called Lucas Systems, which that company, when I started, was 1 million. When I left Respironics, we were about 500 million at that time. So I went back to a 1 million. There was, I think, 10 of us in one room. And it was a voice recognition software company in manufacturing. Again, I grew that to the help. I didn't grow it. I helped, as part of the team that helped grow that. Kind of, again, finance, accounting, HR, and then just general admin. And then we kind of hit about 11 million, and we were there for a while. Again, ready for my kind of next opportunity. And then I ended up at a company called, well, it was Sedgman at the time, but we changed the name. Won't go into the reason, for Taggart, and it was in the coal industry. We were manufacturing engineering for coal companies. We cleaned the coal. So once the coal came out of the ground, again, we were about 100. We were a little bit bigger then. We had construction, 100 million. I was there for about 10 years, again, doing a bunch of acquisitions. We left international company as Respironics was. Then I was then part of we had some private equity money. So then we had to sell the company. Right. And so I was a CFO, and that was my first experience then selling a company, and also first experience learning that when you're CFO selling a company, usually with that comes an exit, just because you have duplication. They have a CFO, right. You don't need it. And some of the situations are different. So then after Taggart, I took some time figuring out what I want to do, did some consulting. Helping smaller entrepreneurial companies. I was kind of an interim CFO, helping them grow. My next 2 gigs, Careform, I joined, again, it was a gentleman who started the company. He actually was a Carnegie Mellon grad, MBA grad, and that was in the pharmaceutical services. And that we were on hyper growth on that company. I think so when I joined, we were 25 employees. 2 years later, we were 225 employees. And growing. We hired I remember at one point in 6 weeks, I hired 60 people in 6 weeks. It was me and my recruiter, and that was it. It was a little crazy, but fun. So then sold that company. Then I'm in a company now so then I went to somebody I knew from the auditor side, knew about this company that I currently work at. So working here at this company, small, growing, and helped sell this company in April. Right. So it wasn't in the career path per se. It just kind of happened. So I've been fortunate to be able to see both the acquiring and integration, but also on the selling side.
We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. But first, you've described working in several different industries: pharmaceutical, healthcare, consulting, ed tech, construction, engineering. Was it difficult moving from industry to industry, or is accounting?
Yeah, so no, it's a good question. I would say it's the infamous 80-20 rule. Revenue is revenue, cash flow is cash flow. Doing your metrics and your KPIs. I mean, all of those are relatively the same across industries, but the secret sauce and what makes it fun is how you apply it in each industry, and not only even each industry, but in each company, because even each company has different ways of how they do it. And, or you may start it one way and then you may need to help move them a different way. Like, for example, when I was at Respironics, they didn't have a cost accounting group. They would do the monthly close. They took a physical inventory every month. That's how we determined what our cost of goods sold was. So needless to say, we needed to change it. But I would really say it's the 80-20, and the fun is the 20%. And one of the things that I loved learning about new industries. I love meeting the new people. I love learning the new products, the industries, how it impacted people, how you helped to grow, what was marketing doing? What were the doing to sell? Like what were those unique industry KPIs? So that to me that's what made it fun. Because doing a cash flow, doing all of those, the basics are the same, but you then have to figure out who's your audience, what can I do in the finance and accounting world to help my customers who are primarily internal do their jobs better. And that's fun.
Kelley, I want to go back a second. You talked about your time at Lucas Systems, but it seems like that was like the start of you finding a niche within the CFO world, which is helping companies grow to be sold off. I have a lot of questions. So the first question is, one, how do you when you go into a position like that, are you aware of what their goal is? And how do you get your mind kind of wrapped around, I'm going to work really hard for the next 24 to 36 months and work myself out of a job so that I can then go to the next, right? Because that's essentially what the gig is. Can you talk a little bit about your mindset in approaching that?
Sure. So it was an evolution. I will not lie about that. So Respironics was definitely my first foray into entrepreneurialism. It's a small company. So we were doing the acquiring. So I was able to see, and I was very fortunate that I had to help on the integration side. So I was able to see, and I was able to witness the emotions and the strategic concerns and issues, and I can't think of the word I'm looking for, of the company that we bought. And I got to see the people. I got to see and meet those people. So that was a fortunate and a great lesson for me to see that side. Lucas Systems, then, that was then the very fast growth. Now I left Lucas Systems ended up not really doing any of the buying and or selling, but it was a good transition. So I'm not going to lie, I wasn't prepared. That first one, I was not prepared. I did not really, we had brought in the private equity. We knew there was a fund. We knew there would eventually have to be an exit, but I probably wasn't emotionally or mentally wrapped around the fact that I was probably working my way around, out of a job. So it was hard. I mean, it was hard because someone else was then taking over. Some of the things you were doing goes away. And, so I probably handled, admittedly on that one, and even with Careform, I probably handled some things better than others, and other things I might not have handled it as well. But each time then I've learned that, okay, if I'm going to be working my way out of the job, what do I need to do to protect myself kind of on the back end? So I think on this latest acquisition was probably quote unquote my best, because I knew exactly what was coming. But also the good thing was when I did it selling the company the first time, you're also a little naive, so you don't understand how hard it is when you go into it. And if anyone out there has done any of this, doing net working capital forecasts and then the reconciliation at the end is a pain. And that's all, because part of it is it's the last thing you do. But I was also prepared for it. And because I was also prepared for it, what I got better at then is I prepared to be prepared. Meaning, so this last company, I was so organized. We had we had all the information. So when we started going through due diligence It was copy paste. We got to move over versus, oh my gosh, where is all of this stuff? What do I have to create? So there were lessons learned. And I think with that, then the emotional side follows because you know what's coming, but you're prepared for it.
So all along the way, as you're building your career, you're also getting involved and staying involved with Penn State. How did you get involved with service back to the university?
Yeah, so growing up, my parents were always involved in something. So community involvement and giving back is one of my core values. So early on in my career, when I was going around, especially moving around, I probably wasn't as involved with Penn State as I was in some other community, but I was always involved in various community activities. The one thing I was always involved with, though, with Penn State was recruiting and with sharing the story. Even when I was living in Kansas City, we were still recruiting. When I was at PPG, we were still doing recruiting. Fortunately, about 10 years ago or plus ago, when I was at Respironics a while ago. Our CEO at the time was also a Penn Stater, and he spent his first 2 years at Penn State at the Greater Allegheny campus. So when they were looking for some new board members, he reached out to me. I did not attend Greater Allegheny, except that I did take one course there between my sophomore and junior year. I took the computer science class there because trying to get it up at Penn State University Park was very difficult. So fortunately, I had some experience. It's a great campus. So I got involved with Greater Allegheny. Now, as a line ambassador, one of the things I definitely learned about and full on is the land grant institution and our Commonwealth system. The importance of being able to give a Penn State education to as many people in Pennsylvania as possible, making it as easy as possible. So I am a strong believer and proponent of our Commonwealth system. So I was excited and proud to get involved with the Greater Allegheny chapter, of which I'm still involved with on the advisory board, and I'm the co-chair of the campaign, the Be Greater campaign for the campus. So with that, but I was always going to all the events. Anytime, came to when any president would come, we would have whether it's city lights or we had different activities. I was always going to the local chapters or the local chapter events and the local Penn State events. I met someone at the Alumni Association at one of these events years ago, and she was telling me about Alumni Council. Amber Krieg, if you're out there, shout out to you. And so we would talk about it. Well, for the first couple of years, I kept missing the deadline I wasn't paying attention. I kept reaching out to her, and like in January, February, like, okay, when's the application? It's like, oh, it's already done. So finally, I got my act together and got put it on my calendar, watched for the application in November, and was that 14 or 15, and ran for Alumni Council, and fortunately was elected. And that's when my involvement with the Alumni Council started.
Excellent. You're getting a lot of shout outs on Facebook. Michelle Bazzelli, Wendy Edgar out there. Wendy's actually watching you from her class. She is on the nursing faculty. Amy Davis, John Schaefer woke up this morning out in Vegas.
Oh, wow, out west.
You're getting a lot of love on Facebook right now. So you get involved with the Alumni Association, and then you take on leadership roles. You were the treasurer of the Alumni Association, really aligns with your professional background. And then you were elected to be the vice president at about the time that COVID-19 hit. Talk a little bit about being part of the leadership team at the Alumni Association that helped pivot during the pandemic, and what are some of the things you're most proud of over the last 17 months?
Well, I mean, honestly, shout out, Paul, to you guys and to the staff and to Randy Houston, my predecessor at Penn State. The creativity and the quickness with you guys acted was just incredible. Fortunately, we are in a time of Zoom, which is great. And we were using it as an alumni association, for some meetings and when we had, but the level and the swiftness that you were able to move so many of the events online was so admirable. I mean, the coffee talk, your in the fall, you were doing the football letter live, just trying to realize that one of the main priorities of the Alumni Association is engaging alumni back to their university and also with each other. So the question was never, oh, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. It was, all right, how do we do this now? And especially recognizing that so many people were going to be kind of stuck at home. They were not going to have that same physical interaction with people. So whereas being together and giving each other a big hug and doing the swaying together with arm in arm at the doing the alma mater isn't the same on Zoom, at least you're able to see people's faces and expressions and hear. And so to me, that was what was so incredibly proud, is watching that transformation and watching the number of interactions and kind of people involved and engaged on each of these Zooms were incredible. With all the different events, you have a lot of those discussions where we're bringing on different professors or experts in areas. So you get the educational components, a lot of the chapters. This was really cool. This I thought was really cool. The chapters would say the New York City one would have an event, but they opened it up. So John Schaefer in Las Vegas would be able to tune in, if he wanted. The Pittsburgh chapter, we did a wine tasting. They opened it up and invited. So that was really pretty cool to be able to kind of peek in to the different chapters around the country. And the beauty, I think, a lot of these things is it's going to last. I mean, yes, everyone still wants to be able to get back in person, but not everyone can travel, or not everyone might be able to go to every event. But the beauty is this will be able to continue. And so it was an honor to be a part of it, but really I bow down to you and your staff for especially the creativity with some of the events. It was pretty awesome to see. On you.
Well, we appreciate the kind words, and look, we get to do what we do for great Penn Staters. I say it all the time that our job is to deliver the kind of alumni association that Penn Staters deserve, and every day we work really hard to try to do that. So this past weekend, you participated in one of your presidential duties, which is welcoming the latest group of graduates into the Alumni Association. You were in the Bryce Jordan Center. You were introduced as the 82nd president of the Alumni Association. Talk about kind of what being in this role means to you personally, and to be able to welcome 5,000 new graduates into the Alumni Association. What was that like for you?
I am a sucker for graduations. I love graduations. I had to practice what I was going to say just so I wouldn't start crying, because it's such a monumental, occasion in anyone's life to be able to graduate from college, and for me to witness it and to be a part of it. That it meant a lot, and it meant so much to be able to welcome so many of the Penn Staters. And the really cool part, or these graduates to become Penn Staters. But watching all of the people, the family members who were also Penn Staters, when we did the induction, I had all of them stand, and to watch their family members watch their kids and vice versa. That was pretty cool, seeing those generations. And also knowing that many of these students who graduated, they were first generation students going to college. I mean, that's overwhelming. That is that's awesome. And for me to be in this position, my love of Penn State just has kept growing. I'm not sure if when I graduated that I would know how involved I would continue to be, but there was no doubt that I would always have a connection and always be involved. And I think and President Barron has said this, I think a few years ago when he talked about, it's Penn State for life. This isn't for and done. You don't go 4 years or 5 years, 6 years, however many you go, and you're done. No, this is supposed to be for life. And, one of the things I think, with the Alumni Association, that's what we are trying to do, is recognize that, as you go through life, your circumstances changes, whether it's job, your family, your geography and stuff. So, but the one thing you will always have is Penn State. And I think the pride that we all have with each other it's trying to harness that, and it's welcoming people. Like if you move to a new city, there's going to be a group of Penn Staters who are going to welcome
Right.
you. You may have nothing else in common, but you have that in common, and that's very significant. And so being able to kind of take the ball from Randy and all the past presidents and lead this forward with, we have a new strategic plan that, we created last year to go forward. Last year we celebrated our 150th anniversary of the Alumni Association. So this is the start of the next 150. It's pretty cool to be able to be a part of that and to help lead all these incredible volunteers so that 150 years from now, I don't know how maybe they're doing real transporting at that point on how they're being together, but that, that we're going to have a piece of, be a part of it is pretty awesome.
Yes, for sure. It's not a 4-year decision. It's a forever decision, right?
Yes.
And our work at the Alumni Association, your education is the most expensive thing that you'll ever buy that you can't sell to somebody else, right? And so it's our job here at the Alumni Association to make sure that the value of that degree that you're holding continues to rise and continues to be respected around the world. And that's kind of what we focus on here. As you approach this position as the president of the Alumni Association, I know you have some priorities that you want to work towards. It's a short term, right? The 2 years are going to fly by. But as you're approaching it, what are the top 2 or 3 things that you're thinking about in terms of your presidential priorities?
Sure, yeah. So one of the kind of my overall for 2 years, I'm calling it like one Penn State Alumni Association. And what I mean, there's a lot of different things out of that. But what I'm trying to focus on is recognizing that, the work that we've done with DE&I, and the diversity amongst our alumni has been great, but we're not done. We have to continue. And when we talk about diversity, it's not just in gender, sexuality, and race. It also includes your age, your education levels, your geography, your social economics. It's where are you in your life? And so I talk a lot about, meeting Penn Staters where they are. And that's what I mean. It's not only physically where they're sitting, but where they are in their life. And so what we're going to really be trying to focus on and continue working on is, what can we do from a technology standpoint to continue, with these Zooms, but people who maybe can't get somewhere, or people, so they have maybe they don't have the same physical abilities to be able to attend, or they don't have the same financial abilities to attend and fly around. So what are we able to do? What are we able to do with people making career changes? So again, from a digital standpoint, what can we do as an alumni association to continue to reach out and connect alumni? We also are going to be making a big change over this next year with the kind of the whole organization of the Alumni Association. This started a couple of years ago. Is we're calling it, one membership. So it's looking at all of our 300, we have 300 chapters around the world. Is right. How are we making sure that we are all in line together? Each chapter having their own unique abilities and unique talents and unique things that they do. But at the same time, if I'm an Alumni Association member, I recognize that I'm a member of the broad group as well as the local chapters, the local chapter groups. And I think also so we talk about DE&I, we talk about digital, and it's really about being, I know this is going to sound, it's about being present. And we're going to be doing a lot of things these next couple of years to lay the groundwork with how the organization is going. But we also want to make sure that we're doing things to recognize where people are now, that we're able to help people now. And at the same time, I want to make sure we're all having some fun doing it. Because I think if the last year and a half has taught us is we have to work hard, but we also have to recognize that we want to have fun, and having fun means being together. And I view working hard as having fun also, but it's recognizing that we're doing it for each other. So I'm really focusing on what can we continue to do from the digital standpoint, making sure that we're in touch with all of our alumni, giving each of our alumni opportunities to stay engaged across the board, but at the same time, making sure that each of our chapters are engaged and that we're helping them with their memberships, helping them with their leadership development, helping to make sure all those local chapters where people actually do live are thriving and they're meeting their goals also.
Excellent. We have a question coming in from the audience. Michael Lucas wants to know maybe if you would make a comment or so on the most recent graduates and the current students and kind of their emotional bond to Penn State and how that might be impacted by COVID-19.
So that's a great question. Hey, Mike. I think, it's probably, well, first of all, probably if I would ask 10 different students, I would probably get 10 different responses. I mean, let's be honest with that. But what I'm feeling from them is they have that same bond that we do. But what we have to recognize is they went through a lot. They had to, a year and a half ago, anyone who was students there, they on a dime had to change how they were learning, where they were going. They lost, many of them lost a year of being together physically. They didn't, like, I know, for example, I was talking to some freshmen, or they're now sophomores, and, they were in their dorm rooms for the whole year. So they actually don't know the campus. They don't know where different things are. And so I think what we have to do is, recognize from a current student standpoint and Alumni Association, we need to be there from a supporting standpoint. We have a lot of opportunities with, we have a program called Fast Start. We have Lion Link. There's a lot of opportunities that us as alumni can do to reach out and just be, I don't even want to use the word mentor because that may be too big of a word. Be a sounding board, just be a listener. So like, for example, I'm going to give a huge shout out to Lion Link. You can look at it online. I get a lot of people reach out to me. They just want to have like 15, 20-minute conversations. They have a few questions. They want that connection to understand that they are a part of a much bigger network. I think the students who are graduating right now, I think they feel fortunate that they were able to have live and in-person, ending with their graduations, but they did miss a lot. And obviously right now, fortunately, they're coming out into a great market of hiring. But I think that's the other thing we do as alumni is we want to make sure we're recruiting, make sure that if on LinkedIn people are reaching out, that we're reaching back out to them. So I think the connection is there, but I think, I have no doubt that there's some sadness that they had from not getting the full experience because of what happened. So I think it's our job as alumni to make sure we're reaching out and welcoming them so they realize, oh, okay, this network, it's for real. And my days at Penn State are not done.
Yeah, and a couple other things, we're being really intentional with welcoming and providing programs for the class of 2024, right? Those are the students who entered in 2020 that had COVID impact their first year. We're doing welcome events and activities to make sure that they are welcomed back to their campuses across the Commonwealth and feel that connection. And so to Michael's question, I think we recognize it. We're being really intentional with our current students, with our graduates. We have built what we think is kind of a robust network of affiliate groups that they can enter right into. We're going to welcome them back to campus in spring of 2022, at least for the class of 2020, to have a commencement celebration. And so what COVID took away from us during that period, we're going to try to get as much of that back with some intentionality all along the way. Kelley, if somebody comes up to you on the street and says, what are like 3 reasons why I should be involved with the Alumni Association, what would you say to them?
Well, I think, there's obviously each person is different and everyone's looking for different, but I think that's the point is we have something for everybody. If you're looking for career counseling, if you're looking to do student mentoring, if you're looking for fun events, athletic events, we have all of those. We have insurance discounts. We have something literally for everyone and for everyone at any stage of their kind of life, and career. It's also very easy. It's very convenient. We have a great website, a shout out, if you just Google, Penn State Alumni Association, you'll be able to see all the events that we have going on. with the 300 chapters that we have around the world, you probably physically aren't far from anyone. So we have chapters, events, and so you're able to follow them on Facebook, follow their website, see what they're doing. So it's very easy. If you want to sit at home and join in on events like this. So we try to make it as as convenient as possible. And lastly, I think one thing that all of us have as Penn Staters is our love for Penn State. And one of the things that the Alumni Association does is we do a lot to support current students with current programs, with Thon, with athletics. And so we do a lot of events, and we are big supporters, both, yes, financially, but also physically with events and people. So if you want that engagement back to Penn State, we have events and opportunities for you to do all of that. So it's convenient. We have something for everyone, and it helps also to give back and support Penn State.
Excellent. This is the Penn State Alumni Association's Coffee Hour. I'm Paul Clifford. I'm joined this morning by Kelley Lynch. She's the 82nd president of the Penn State Alumni Association. Kelley, we like to have a little bit of fun here on Coffee Hour and what we call our lightning round. And so I'm going to just throw a couple quick hitter questions. You've seen the program before, so nothing should be a surprise for you here. But let's start with, you're from Pittsburgh. Let's start with the Wawa versus Sheetz.
It's Sheetz all day, baby. It's Sheetz. I will say, however, my brother played football at Princeton. So I will say I went to Wawa when I was before Sheetz. So Wawa is awesome, but it's Sheetz, baby. It's Sheetz.
All right. How about your favorite all-time Penn State football player?
Oh, man. There's so many. But, I was thinking, I'm going to have to go in my era. So I'm going to go with Shane Conlon.
Shane Conlon is high on my list as well.
Yeah, and you know why? Because he's a really awesome guy too. He's a really nice guy. I mean, I didn't know him really well, but it's a good guy.
Absolutely. How about your favorite class at Penn State?
So I was a finance major, and I loved finance, and I loved economics. But my favorite class, and I knew this was going to be one of your questions, so I wanted to look it up because I couldn't remember the exact name, and actually the name I had was right. I took it my freshman year as an elective, and it was called Geography of International Affairs. And it was a 100 level course, so I took it as elective. Well, it turned out that I was in class with juniors and seniors because that, for their majors, that was or maybe it was junior, whatever. I loved this class because it was one of my first classes that I really felt like it was critical thinking. I mean, and it was like the silly things that nowadays you're like, well, yeah, how did you not think about that? Right. But we would literally talk about, why did certain countries have stronger armies versus navy, and so it wasn't always about war, but it was kind of like, oh yeah, because they have no water where they are. So why would they have? Right. But it went beyond that. It also talked about trade, because we talked about climate and what the crops that they build, and therefore what they how that affected their economy. It just was a really, really cool class. Other than living in Bigler, and it was in Walker, and so it was a little bit of a hike. But no, I love that class.
That's awesome. I'm just looking at the comments on Facebook right now. I mentioned this in the pre-show and didn't know if we would get it, but there is a comment that Rutgers beats them both. And so there's a vote for Rutgers in the Wawa versus Sheetz. I said that we're going to have to add that at some point because it's a growing chain here, at least in central Pennsylvania down into Maryland. So shout out to Kent Bourne for voting for Rutgers. If you could have dinner with anyone, who would it be and why?
I actually have two answers to that. One is a family, so it's personal. My father's father died when my dad was 12, so I never got to meet him. I was blessed to meet my other grandparents, but both my dad's parents immigrated from Ireland. They actually met here, but they were from the same island off of the coast of Ireland. And I never got to meet my grandpa Lynch. So I'd love to meet him. He just hear about his life. And I've heard all the stories. And I just sound like a beyond special person. But I have a Penn State one also. I always thought, I knew I'd like to have dinner with one of the original presidents of Penn State, just to kind of hear from them. But I thought about it and I'm like, I want to meet the president who suggested, and I don't want to say allowed women to join Penn State. So I looked it up, and it was in 1871, and it was James Calder. And he actually came from Hillsdale College, where he brought women to that college. And his first term, he brought women to college, to Penn State. And we were the first college in Pennsylvania to have women. We beat Pitt by 22 years. We beat Penn by 6. So shout out to James Calder. That was 1871. I just would love to just find out, he was obviously a big supporter of women in education. So I'd like to meet him.
That's interesting. If I'm not mistaken, Pitt was actually founded before Penn State. Obviously, Pittsburgh was a larger city, and even in through colonial times.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising, but that 22 years after Penn State admitted the first woman, Pitt was still behind.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
All right. So your most unusual we are moment, right? A lot of people reference vacations or walking through an airport. Where did you hear we are that caught you off guard?
Well, I'm going to say I was the one who actually did it, but I will say why I always remember it. It was probably about 10 years ago or so. Penn State was playing Northwestern in Chicago, and my brother and his family, they live in Chicago. The game was later in the afternoon. It might have even been early evening. And so we went bike riding. My brother and his wife, Yuko, lived in Lincoln Park, so right in the city. So we go bike riding. Now, I don't know if I ever went bike riding in a city before. So Kevin he was in front of me. Yuko was behind me. I had the helmet, had all of that. So we got out, we went by the shore, which was great. But now we're coming home, and we're on his street heading back to his house. And I think it was Halstead. And we're on our bikes, and I look over on the sidewalk, and there's probably a dozen people head to toe Penn State. Now I'm wearing my Penn State. I yell, "We are." They all dead stop and yell back, "Penn State." And my brother and sister-in-law was like, "Are you nuts?" And they're like, "How did you know they would reply?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" So that, I know I'm the one who initiated it, but it was more that nope, they got it. They knew. They didn't. I don't know if they really knew where it was coming from, but
That's awesome. We have a question coming in from the audience for the lightning round. This is a little unusual, but it's coming from Gwen Kaufman niece, and Gwen wants to know, who was your favorite Lion Ambassador advisor?
Well, I don't know. We had a couple. I mean, I don't want to, oh shoot, what was? Oh my God, I heard the one before Gwen. Her name escapes me. But so.
Well, if you can't remember her name, then maybe Gwen was your favorite.
I'm gonna have to go with Gwen. Gwen was awesome. Gwen rocked it.
That's awesome. How about your favorite Penn State sport?
Ever on television?
Whatever's on television. There you go.
Yeah. I mean, obviously love football, love wrestling, love volleyball. I've loved, I have friends in my sorority who did field hockey, love watching lacrosse. So soccer. So yeah, I'm pretty much hockey. Oh my gosh. Right. So I'm pretty much, if the BTN has a Penn State sport on, I might be turning it on.
Absolutely. And finally, your favorite flavor of creamery ice cream?
Oh, is there more than one? There's more than just bittersweet mint? Bittersweet mint.
Oh, wow. That is, okay. Well, we've heard some interesting takes. Bittersweet mint is a popular choice, much better than tea berry. So, yes, we haven't.
Yeah, that's going to get a lot of,
yeah.
Team tea berry is big and strong, but bittersweet mint rocks.
Absolutely. Kelley, I want to thank you for joining us on Coffee Hour. We appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to share your story with fellow Penn Staters, and we're so grateful for your service back to Penn State through the Alumni Association as our 82nd president. So thank you so much for being here this morning.
Oh, thank you, Paul. This was great. Appreciate it.
And I want to thank everyone else for joining here on Zoom and out on Facebook. If you're a member of the Alumni Association, thank you so much for your support. If you're not, go to our website right now at alumni.psu.edu and become a member of the world's largest alumni association. Thanks for all you do for the university, for the glory, and for the future. We are
Penn State.